I've cleaned my desk 100 times and by Friday it looks exactly the same. Well, it turns out that this is all neuroscience. Hi there, I'm a vet, I'm a neuroscientist, and my desk is chaos. For years, I thought something was really wrong with me. Then I found research that changed my perspective on this issue. Well, and today I'm going to show you the neuroscience behind why some brains genuinely work better in messy desk environments, why the clean desk advice might actually be hurting you, and how to know if your desk setup is serving your brain or, well, fighting against it. Let me tell you about the most exhausting loop I've ever been stuck in. And this was my relationship with my desk. I would clean my desk, feel productive for 3 days, and then watch it return to chaos by week's end. And I would always think to myself, man, what's wrong with me? Others can keep this desk working and being clean and everything, and mine always looks like a bunch of papers coming out of everywhere. And the funny thing is this, that when it was clean, I couldn't find the stuff. And actually I was less productive. And funnily, most people have experienced the same thing. That first they clean their desk, and then their desk becomes messy again in a short period of time, and then they become guilty for it. However, the question that we're not trained to ask is, what if the problem isn't the messy desk? Is the advice even applicable for me? For years I assumed I just lacked discipline. But when I actually looked at the research, at how human memory actually works, I realized that the problem was actually capacity. Quick test. How many things do you think you can hold in your conscious mind at once? 10? 20? Yeah, good guess. Try maybe 4, 5 on a good day. And that tiny number gives us an indication. Working memory storage capacity is important because cognitive tasks can be completed only with sufficient ability to hold information as it is processed. Research shows that brain memory storage is limited to 3 to 5 meaningful items in young adults. And this is incredibly small. So what happens to your brain when you're juggling 10 things for work, 5 for home, and 3 personal projects? Well, your brain cannot hold all of that. So what does it do? It looks for help. And this limitation is why our brains have evolved to use the environment as an extension of itself. And your brain has been using this workaround for your whole life, without you even realizing it. Philosophers call it the extended mind, and hopefully it will change how you see your messy desk. What if I told you that your mind doesn't stop at thinking? Because your notebooks, your sticky notes, your chaotic desk, for example, all of these, they might actually be part of your cognitive system. This is published philosophy and cognitive science, and it's been debated for almost 30 years. In the philosophy of mind, the extended mind thesis says that the mind doesn't exclusively reside in the brain or even in the body, but extends into the physical world. The thesis proposes that some objects in the external environment can be part of a cognitive process, and in that way function as extensions of the mind itself. Well, and if you don't believe me, didn't it ever happen to you that you go into another room and you forget completely why you've entered into this room? Well, it could be that something in the other room had reminded you of something and it's not there anymore in the new room. So Clark and Chalmers presented the idea of active externalism, in which objects within the environment function as a part of the mind. They argued that the separation between the mind, the body, the environment is an unprincipled distinction. And they showed this by presenting a thought experiment, which was, Otto has Alzheimer's disease and has written all of his directions down in a notebook to serve the function of his memory. Inga is able to recall the internal directions within her memory. The argument is that the only difference existing in these two cases is that Inga's memory is being internally processed by the brain, while Otto's memory is being served by the notebook. In other words, Otto's mind has been extended to include the notebook as the source of his memory. So, Otto still has Alzheimer's, but his notebook is helping him. And your notebooks, your highlighters, your visible to-do lists, your little dashboards, well, I don't think that they're clutter, because they're functioning as external memory systems. And if you've ever tilted your head to perceive a rotated image, or a programmed smartphone to remind you of an upcoming appointment, you have engaged in cognitive offloading, the use of physical action to alter the information processing requirements of a task so as to reduce cognitive demand. A key way in which we offload cognitive processes into the world is by using it as a repository of representational information. So, let's say you put in sticky notes all over your desk. And so, with this method, you can eliminate the need of an internal representation, which means that, well, you don't need to think about it. It's there written in front of you. So, when you spread things out visually, you're essentially offloading cognitive load onto your physical environment. And those visual cues reduce the mental effort required to hold everything in your head. A clean environment removes those cues and forces everything back into your limited 4-item working memory. So, your environment can function as an extension of your brain, and this explains why some people need things visible to function. But here's something that I wasn't expecting when I dug into this research. Messy environments can also make you creative. Einstein had a famously chaotic desk. So did Mark Twain. And for years, people dismissed that as a quirky genius behavior. But what if their messy desk was contributing to their creative genius? Okay, here I'm touting a bit my own horn. But anyway, working at a clean desk may promote healthy eating and generosity, according to new research. But the research also shows that a messy desk may confer its own benefits, such as promoting creative thinking and stimulating new ideas. For example, participants were asked to come up with new uses for ping pong balls. Overall, participants in the messy room generated the same number of ideas for new uses as the clean room counterparts. But their ideas were rated as more interesting and creative when evaluated by impartial judges. So being in a messy room led to something that firms and, in general, people want more of: creativity. The researchers also found that when participants were given a choice between a new product and an established one, those in the messy room were more likely to prefer the novel one, which is a signal that being in a disorderly environment stimulates a release from conventionality. However, here I have to highlight something. These findings have yet to be replicated and, of course, need more scientific attention. For example, in 2018, a replication attempt didn't find the same effect. So it doesn't seem that this is a universal rule. But hopefully it does suggest that the messy equals bad narrative is way too simplistic. The point isn't that everyone should have a messy desk, but I guess the point is that you don't need to have a clean desk to be productive and a functional member of society. So messiness might support creativity for some people, but actually there is one group where it's practically a survival strategy. And if you've ever felt like things stop existing when you can't see them, well, I think the next part then it's for you. Out of sight, out of mind. Well, for most people, that's just a saying. However, for people with ADHD, well, this is literal. And understanding why changes how you should organize your space. This ADHD phenomenon is rooted in impairments in working memory and executive function. Working memory acts like the brain's temporary notepad, holding small amounts of information for short periods, so you can use them immediately. And people with ADHD often experience working memory deficits. When working memory is weak, it's difficult to keep track of things unless they're actively in front of you. It isn't that people with ADHD believe things no longer exist when they're out of sight, of course. However, well, they simply stop thinking about them. So for ADHD brains, and honestly, many non-ADHD brains too, keeping things visible is a genuine cognitive strategy. And for example, individuals with ADHD struggle to inhibit irrelevant information, yet outperform non-ADHD individuals in divergent thinking tasks. So, if your brain runs multiple threads simultaneously, visual environmental cues help maintain those threads. And unfortunately, removing them doesn't simplify your thinking, it makes it harder. So, now we've covered the science. Your working memory is limited, your environment can extend your cognition, and mess can support creativity. And for some brains, visual cues aren't optional, but essential. But here's a question for you. How do you know if your setup actually works for you? So, just to make things clear, I'm not here to tell you that all mess is good. Some mess is just, well, mess. So, let me give you 2 questions that will tell you in about 10 seconds whether your desk is functional chaos or actual chaos. So, here they are. So the first one is, do you know where everything is? And the second one is, which setup makes you feel more functional? It's easy, simple. Only those 2 questions. And if you're functional, well, you have a system even if others can't see it. Even if it looks ugly. Everything has a purpose and you know where things are. And if it's an actual mess, you know. You can't find things, you don't know where things are, and it's probably just disgusting. So, to finalize things, if your desk setup is there to please others, yeah, sure. Go ahead, clean it up. But if you need it to be functional and right for your brain, you do you. Your desk shouldn't be used as a measure of your character. It's just a tool. And tools should serve the person using them and not the other way around. If spreading things out helps your brain process information, well, that's just how your brain works. And that's good. You're just using your environment as an extension of the mind.